Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion, the podcast about books, authors, their craft, and more. I'm your host Edith, and joining me, not from across the pond, not from the UK either, or Australia, or New Zealand, but Upper Austria, Gmunden, is UK expert Izzy Arnfeld. Hello Izzy, and welcome to Book Lovers Companion.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure having you, an aspiring author, upcoming author. The first question is, why wanting to become an author at all?
I've wanted to become an author my entire life, actually. I've always wanted to communicate with people. I think that is where it came from initially. So I mean, as a baby, I spoke very, very early and walked very, very late. So I was immediately kind of desperate to communicate and kind of didn't really care about anything else. And that's kind of been the theme, I would say, since then. Very, very eager to talk to people and communicate with people and tell stories. I started writing little stories when I was probably about 3 or 4. And then since then, yeah, I mean, in my primary school, I wrote little stories I had to my best friend in school. She would illustrate them and I would write them. And I've always done that. Yeah. And then since then, pursued it more.
Okay. And I always agree with authors when they say, as an author, you also have to be a ferocious reader. I suppose it was the same with you. Yeah. What kind of books?
As a young
what
child,
kind of
yes.
books? Yeah. Did you read, or did you prefer to read?
Now or as a child?
As a child and now, of course, because tastes change or attitudes change.
Yeah. As a child, I read a lot, more than I do now. I think I had more time to do it. But I'd read anything that was in the house, really. I mean, both my parents are huge readers, so anything that they deemed appropriate for me, I would read. I read Harry Potter, as every child does, and especially in Britain. And I read any kind of dystopian trilogy as a young teenager. I was very, very into all of those kind of series like Percy Jackson and The Hunger Games and all of those kind of things. And then as I got a little bit older, more classics. So I did A-level English in school, and then that was kind of when I really started getting into more classic literature. Like, I mean, The Great Gatsby and Grapes of Wrath. I went through a bit of an American literature phase about 16, 17, where I really wanted to move to New York and be a writer in New York, but did grow out of that. And yeah, and now just I try to read things that kind of are in the themes of the things that I want to write about. I kind of try and combine things together a bit more now because I have less time to read. So I try to be sort of tactical with my reading choices, which is unfortunate. I wish I had all the time in the world to read, but yeah.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Yeah.
And you said
yes.
you read theme wise. So, and you also mentioned true crime is of
Mhm.
interest to you. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What you mean or what you meant when you said true crime, or your take on true crime is a bit different from what my guest said in one of the episodes.
So I wrote for my university dissertation, I wrote
Mhm,
a feature-length film, which was kind of my passion project for over a year. And it kind of still is on the side. Um, and it's about the main theme is sort of true crime if it was mixed with like the Truman Show.
mm,
So kind of a true crime and I guess reality TV kind of
mhm,
combined
mhm,
together. Um, but yeah, um, the kind of, I guess, the experiences that I've had in my personal life, my family had a very um, kind of personal experience with a pretty serious crime and
mhm,
true crime documentaries that were then made out of it. So I think
mhm,
I kind of grew a fascination with sort of the people behind it, the real people that
mhm,
are sort of, I guess, a little bit vulnerable and
mhm,
exposed when those things are so public. Yeah.
mhm, mhm. So the people, when you say the people, you mean the victims of the crime more so than, let's say, the detective side of the true crime then?
Yes. So, yes. So the the victims and also, yeah, I've done a lot of um, sort of research around kind of families
Mhm,
of victims, and I guess the butterfly effect of kind
mhm,
of how it ripples out, and
yeah,
people that didn't even know about the crime or really
okay.
interacted with it have actually been impacted by it in some
Mhm,
way. I find that really fascinating.
mhm, mhm,
And I mean, in all writing, that's fascinating.
mhm. I get the impression that you're bit more interested than in the more not or the non-fiction part of the writing. Are you also interested in the absolute fiction part of writing, say writing crime fiction, for example?
Yes, I've never wrote crime fiction. Uh, that's kind of a lie, actually. I wrote a crime play, so I guess it is crime fiction. I wrote a murder mystery play, um, which was a lot of fun.
Mm,
Um, but I think most of my sort of novels and short stories are, um, I guess, not really in a specific genre, like not in like romance or
mhm,
crime
mhm, mhm,
per se. I guess they're all realism, I would say, in terms of novel writing
mhm,
um, or short stories. Yeah,
mhm,
realism, I guess. Yeah.
mhm. I get the impression from what you just said, you are more a playwright, sort of screenplay writer than a novel author.
Um, I've sort of dabbled in all areas of writing. I've done short stories, I've done novel writing, I've
Mhm,
done plays, screenplays, short films, poems, um, children's fiction,
mhm, mhm.
kind of a bit of everything.
A bit of everything.
Um,
Okay.
really, I think, yeah.
And do you have you already discovered for yourself the one true love in this? I don't know. Let's say it is really is nonfiction, or it is really writing plays, or do you say, "Oh, I keep my mind open for everything"?
This is kind of the crossroads that I'm at in my life at the moment, I
Ah,
think. Um, so I go through phases where I think this is the type of writing that I want to do forever. So last year that was definitely screenwriting.
Mm.
I spent the whole year doing screenwriting, and
Mhm.
then I made a film at the start of this
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
And I think I really like the way that with screenwriting you can, because I think in images a lot of the time.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so with screenwriting, you can translate that image very
Mhm.
directly because a screenplay
Yeah.
is just a series of images, whereas prose is a bit more fluid and less so. It still is images, but it's a bit different. So I thought, this is the niche. And then more recently, I've been more drawn to prose again.
Mm.
So it's it kind of comes and goes. Yeah. So I think in, I guess, the next few years of my 20s, I'm hoping to work out which one it is. But I also don't want to put too much pressure on choosing yet.
Why choose it all?
This is what some people have been saying to me. Because there are writers out there that do
Yeah.
pursue different medias and are very successful in multiple, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
So
think, yeah,
perhaps I won't ever choose.
yeah. And why should you? I mean, why not? If that's what you like and what you love and what you're good at, why not do everything? A little bit of everything.
I think it's the time thing, and I think I get bored very easily,
Okay.
which is another reason why I tend to jump. I jump
Mm.
between types of writing a
Mm.
lot,
Okay.
um, and I would like to force myself to commit to one for a period of time and
Mhm.
finish like a larger project,
Mhm.
rather than like, a short story or a short film, something a bit, uh,
Mhm.
yeah, a bit bigger. Um,
Mm.
that does require a
Mm.
choice.
It does indeed. And do you also have what most authors feel is very important for their development as a writer, a writing community? Are you part of a
Mm.
writing community where you feel at home, where you can ask for advice or bounce ideas off or get feedback you feel is absolutely constructive?
So I guess I've found a couple of different um, communities throughout kind of, I guess, I mean, in my master's, I did creative
Mhm.
writing. So I was
Mhm.
part of a cohort of writers. And within
Mhm.
that cohort, um, I definitely bonded with different writers, especially
Mhm.
different writers for different types of writing. Like I have a friend
Mhm.
who I would specifically go to for children's writing,
Mhm.
and I have friends that I'd specifically talk to about screenwriting. Um, and then more recently, I am on the Young Jurors panel for the UK Jewish Film Festival, which is really exciting.
Mhm.
So that is a whole group of creatives, some writers, and then there's also sort of actors and producers and a whole bunch of different
Mhm.
creative people. So I am really excited about that because I think there could be some people in there that I can kind of steal and add to my community as well a little bit. Because I think that outside of sort of university or school,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
harder to find those people in day to day life. I don't meet that many writers just out and about really that
Mm.
often. Yeah.
Yeah, can imagine, especially not here in Austria, I suppose.
Not yet. No, I'm always eavesdropping, hoping that I'll find someone, looking out in coffee shops for people that are writing, but I haven't so far met anyone.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's a bit difficult here in Austria. Maybe online, because a lot of the guests I had
Mm.
also said the pandemic the negative side, we all know about that. But on the positive side, they met a lot of new people, supportive people, also online. It was a great help.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's maybe one silver lining of the pandemic. I don't know where you would meet writers online. I guess like forums and things like that.
I would say Facebook's not just for the old people, but it's also for the writers.
Yeah.
Because I suppose that's where they all gather and where they form groups and support groups and so on. And there's always a chance of meeting someone
Mm.
through a podcast. Who knows?
This is also true. Perhaps. Yeah. Perhaps.
Absolutely. Yeah. Who knows? May I ask, Izzy, um, your experience now, you've done quite a lot of things. Which is the hardest part for you when you sit down and write or prepare to write? Where would you say, oh, these are the hurdles that I have to tackle in my work?
Mm. I think for me, the first thing is I am a huge perfectionist, and especially if I spend a lot of time thinking about writing, and then sometimes I put myself off, or I come up with a lot of ideas, probably maybe a new idea every week or something like that. It's fairly regular. I'll come up with ideas, and then I will, in my head, talk myself out of the idea, or convince myself why it wouldn't be a good idea. Or I'll overthink which media to choose.
Mm,
And I'll often, when I've come up with an idea, I'll spend a lot of time planning it.
mm,
And I'll also um, try and write it in, at least in prose and in um, screenplay form, maybe also
mhm,
in stage play form, to see which form suits it the best.
mhm.
Um, and talk myself out of it if I haven't already during that process. So it's rare for me that an idea really gets past that stage. Um, so that is the challenge that I'm having at the moment.
Okay.
I have one idea that I love, um, that I'm working on at the moment, but again, I am struggling to choose between prose and script form, and I keep going back and forth between the two and kind of re-editing and then
Mhm.
changing it, and yeah.
And just doing it in one form, and if you don't like, also, what I mean is finish it in one form and then go back and see if you can do it also in the other form.
So I'll write the first section, probably like the first, I don't know, 4 scenes, the
Mhm.
first 2 chapters, and then I'll try and kind of change it
Yeah.
and see. And usually what happens is I'll write the prose first, and then
Okay.
I'll switch to seeing if it could work as a script as well. And
Okay.
then obviously different parts work better in
Mhm.
script form than they do
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
prose
Mhm.
form. And the problem I'm having at the moment is that you lose different things, but you also gain different things from each form. So in prose form, I feel like I'm more inside the character's mind,
Mhm.
can really get more of a kind of, I guess, instant
Yeah.
emotion
Yeah.
from the character and the
Yeah.
inside of the character and the way they work, and feel like I empathize with them quicker. But in the script form, I can have these really amazing images, and I can tell things with just like in a second. You can show something, and it, it gives so much in such a short space of time that it's not. It's a lot harder to do that with prose. You can still do it sometimes, but with
Mhm.
script, it can be instant, which is also yeah, really cool, and it's, yeah, difficult.
Yeah, I get that, but is it not also a bit more challenging if you have to put everything into dialogue? Because when you have a script, you have people talking to each other. Inner monologue is not really possible, unlike in a novel.
Yes.
So it,
Yeah. Yeah, it can also take that away, but it can also make things that are not said
mhm,
more powerful, and things,
mhm,
obviously, the things that are
yeah,
said are even more
yeah,
important.
yeah,
Obviously, dialogue in prose is also important, but especially in screenplays, every word has to be so important,
yeah,
so well thought out.
mhm, yeah. And do you also think that when we speak about be it true crime or fictional crime, the base is different in a script than it would be in a novel?
The pace, yeah, I think it depends on the length as well. Like if you're
Mm,
writing a short film script or a
mhm,
feature length film script,
yeah,
or whether it's, for TV, all these things obviously
yeah,
change things too. But I think generally pace in films is faster than
mhm,
in prose.
mhm.
Yeah.
Because I often get that impression when I read books that have very short chapters and talking to the authors, it turns out they come actually from screenwriting, and that explains the pace in their books.
And then they wrote screenplays first and then
Yep,
wrote novels.
yep, exactly.
Because it's usually the other way around.
Mm, yep,
Like a novel is usually converted
yep,
into a
exactly.
screenplay
Yeah, yeah,
later on.
yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
Because they
Hmm.
usually don't, as far as I can tell, they usually don't do their own novels as a screenplay, but they wrote other things as screenplays, and then they come to novel writing, and the experience you have as a reader is it's far faster because the chapters are
Yeah.
shorter. There's a lot going on. The pace is faster, and sometimes you can't even catch your breath, which is not a bad thing actually, because
Yeah,
it's
it can be a
absolutely
great thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's actually quite enjoyable.
Mm. Yeah, it
But
can be. I mean, I think people's general attention spans tend to be shorter.
yeah,
So that can be a good way to get people into reading, maybe that wouldn't normally read. But it is also a shame that that is the way things are going now, I think.
yes, unfortunately, and I think the length of books has gone down. So
Mhm.
to sell a book, you have to be shorter
Yeah.
than you have been in the past, like say 20 years ago. I mean, I on the other hand, I prefer if I enjoy a book, I like it to be a long one. If I don't enjoy a book, I
Mhm.
mean, it doesn't matter how long it is, but that's another story. But maybe that's because I'm Gen X and we do know smartphones weren't a thing back then and whatnot, and I'm grateful for that. So, but we also suffer from this impatience because smartphones, the internet, and everything leaves their mark even on us who are used to a slower pace. Es-
Yeah.
Especially with children's or young adult books, I think is it not a bit difficult to grab their attention and hold their attention?
Um, mm, yes, I think that's the the biggest part of children's writing is definitely um, how do you grab their attention? How do you keep their attention? It's a lot in the character's voice, I think, that does that. Especially children's writing. Like I wrote a middle grade novel, or half of a novel. still writing it. And that was the thing, that once you get the voice that sort of captures the children's attention, that's really half the battle. And it's just keeping the characters engaging in the same way that you would for an adult, I think. But children see everything almost more than adults do. If there's something slightly off about the story, they just they won't think, well, I've read half of this book, so I should really finish it because I've committed to reading it. Whereas some adults will persevere with the book because, we've spent time reading it. Children, they just go, okay, bye. Which is, it's a bit of a fear, I guess, as a children's writer, but it's also what makes it so rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to say that at my age, I do agree with the children. So,
You will throw the book out.
Yeah, I've never done that before, but I'm at a point where I say, okay, I don't spend any more time if I don't like it. If I can't get into it, just forget it, because time's too short. Like you said, we don't have so much time these days. Work and everything else is so demanding. So why, bother?
Yeah.
And what do you think about authors who say, and I've heard, I think it was Jeffrey Deaver who said that, writing for the market, because that's what he does. He looks at the market, he gets the ideas and, what's going on, and then he sits down and writes what the market wants.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently, actually, because I think that my general view is that you should write for yourself first. But what I mean by writing for yourself is actually write what's there, but also what is probably the hardest thing for you to write, the most honest thing for you to write is the best thing to write. And I would hope that that's also what people would want to read, because it's the most honest thing, and I think that's so important. But I think that I am also very I wouldn't say I'm particularly impressionable, but I am a bit of a people pleaser in my life. I try not to be, and I'm working on it. But I think that if I hear this is the story that people want to hear, I think it's so hard for that not to subconsciously affect the story that I end up writing. So I think it is still a mix, but I don't look for this is what the market wants. But maybe I should be doing that, because I think that it's a tough market if you actually want to make it as a writer, and for a living. You maybe do have to do that.
You probably have, and it's not a given even then, because it's also a lot of luck involved when you look at it. I mean, it's
Definitely.
if you get the chance, if someone picks you up or thinks, yeah, that's it, that's a new thing, we need to pick up this book, it sounds good, probably people might like it. I often also get the impression that, of course, publishing houses, they are, businesses. It's all about the business. Of course it is. But sometimes I get the impression when I talk to especially indie authors that they tend to agree with me when they say the traditional publishing houses oftentimes play it too safe. And they also sometimes, or way too often, more than sometimes, underestimate the readers.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they think we should play it safe. We don't publish things that are too, controversial maybe, or that's not something that's in fashion. Let's put it that way. Because if, I don't know, the color blue or the color red is the color of the season, then you probably won't find a green jumper or a yellow jumper. It's the same with books. You know, there is this wave of, I don't know, of what is it called? Romantasy, fantasy, and romance at the moment, and you won't get anything else. Or there is this wave of cozy crime, and you won't get a, I don't know, bloody thriller that easily, like you did before. They are also listening to the market, and they think that's what everyone wants. I mean, like I said, they are business, so they have to look at the numbers. Of course, they do.
Yeah. But it's hard, even if you are a writer that really keeps your finger on the pulse and, okay, this is what the market wants, this is what I'm going to write. It takes so long to write the book and then, publish the book and all of the stages that goes into editing and all of it, that by the time the book actually comes out, that isn't the trend anymore. And especially now with the rise of things like book talk, I think trends are moving even faster. So it becomes increasingly difficult to actually follow that pulse and be what people want to read. I think it would be, you'd have to have like a team of writers working on one book to get it out fast enough.
Yeah, use, I don't know what AI and what not, probably. But let's be honest. I mean, the good writers, you have to be you have to be patient, and sometimes you have to persevere. And when I think of authors I've met and heard them talk about their career as writers, most of them, especially those I know in the crime writers scene, they still have a day job.
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone is Val McDermott, yeah. So they do publish their books. They have a publisher, they have an agent, but they still have a day job. It's necessary. Or they were even successful after they retired.
Yeah, I guess, and then you also have more time to write after you retire, which
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's
and the life experience.
Also a thing. Absolutely. It doesn't mean young people can't write books. I'm not saying that. But like you said, making it as an author, especially hoping to live from your writing. I mean, Shades of Grey has already been published. What else is there to do? or 50 Shades of Boredom, as I always call it.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Or self-help books. They bring a lot of money.
Yes. Yeah. But again, I don't think I have the life experience yet to write a self-help book. I don't think anyone would want to read that yet. Maybe in 30 years.
Yeah, doesn't matter. But how would you describe when you sit down and start again your writing? How would you describe your writing process? You said you have a lot of new ideas, and you often talk yourself out of it. But when you sit down and write, how would you describe your process?
I usually have about 4 different tabs open on my laptop. I usually also write things down with a pen. Like I'll have like a notebook on the side. I make a lot of mind maps. And I'll usually have them open kind of, I mean, I guess in a very stereotypical writer in a film way where you're sort of surrounded by lots of pieces of paper, and I tend to make maps on the wall. I like to have things visually around me. I guess it's kind of that feeling of being actually immersed in the world. I like to feel almost like I am immersed in the world, like I've done before. Also, I'll make Pinterest boards and
Mm-hmm.
Spotify playlists for my characters.
Mm.
And I will also print off the images from the
Mm-hmm.
boards and the sort of mood boards from the characters and put
Mm-hmm.
them on the wall and kind of be in the world as much as I can when I
Okay.
write.
Okay.
Um, but in terms of actually like, you know, just the writing,
Yeah.
I just sit there and I just get it out. I don't I do tend to edit a lot as I go along. Every time I open the laptop, I will reread the bit that I wrote the day before and change parts, but I try to, as much as I can, even if it feels painful, I will always keep a copy of what I wrote the day before because I think there is
Yeah.
a definite tendency, at least with me, to immediately hate what I wrote. And then a few days later think, okay, it's not actually horrible, just this part needs to be a bit different. Um, but it's really useful to have all the drafts. So I do
Yeah.
try and do that as much as I
Yeah.
can, even though sometimes I'm reluctant to save a draft. But yeah.
Okay. Do you think it might be helpful to get yourself out of this habit? Meaning opening the draft, doing the editing instead of just, you know, moving on with your writing?
Yes. Yes, it would. Um, but yeah, I don't know if that is realistic for me because I think that I spend so much time thinking about it in real life that by the time I go back to writing, I've changed things that I want to say. Not
Mhm.
overall in the book, but I think actually, because I'm thinking about writing almost all the time. So I take
Mm.
inspiration from what I am experiencing. I'm people watching all the
Mhm.
time. I'm
Mhm.
looking out for things and mannerisms, and I think, oh, actually, I could steal that mannerism that I just saw from that lady on the train, and that will slightly change the scene, but it will make it better. So I'm gonna reword that part. Um, so yeah, I think I'm just always striving to make things better, and I do sometimes try and do like stream of consciousness writing to try and
Mhm.
not do that, and it can be really good. And actually, have written some really cool poems as a result of doing
Mm.
stream of consciousness writing too, because it kind
Mhm.
of forces you not to be a perfectionist.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
but it would be ideally it would be good to not edit all the time.
Ah, yeah.
But yeah, that
Yeah.
is something I'm working on.
Some people get lost in translation, you get lost in editing.
Yeah, which is actually really sad and boring. Just like, oh yes, I don't love editing. It's not
Yeah, well,
it's
who
not
does?
the passion of my life, but yeah.
Yeah,
But
who
I
yeah,
am
who
definitely a fiend for all those kind of things. Correcting grammar and I mean,
yeah, but again,
yeah.
overthinking it again maybe. Is that what you do again? Overthinking it?
Yes. Um it's kind of a it's a catch it is a catch 22, I suppose, because actually the overthinking to some extent does make me a writer. I don't think I would be a writer without that part of my brain, but it's also the part of the brain that slows me down at the same
Yeah,
time. It's both. It's yeah, a blessing and a
yeah.
curse, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what would you say, what would you need at this moment in your journey as a writer? What is it what you would need to go on to move on with your writing?
Um, I mean, right in this very moment, I am choosing between prose and script form for a very specific idea. So
Mhm.
the next thing I need to do is make that decision that will
Mhm.
move me forward
Mhm.
with this particular piece of writing that I'm working on. Um, because the idea is fairly fully formed, although I always change where I'm going to start the story. I fixate a lot on, I will write it, but I'll change the order of things a lot. But I think that's okay. I guess I work in a more of a screenwriter way in that sense, because I don't know actually if other novel writers do this, but I put all this parts of the story that I want to have, all the kind of hit points, and I will move them around on the wall and kind of, oh, what if I put this thing first, and does it make sense? Because obviously you can do, you can do it in books too, have like flashbacks or what makes the most sense to happen in what order, and do I want to make this happen in the past and but still have it sequentially later in the story for the reader or for the viewer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And where do you see yourself, let's say, in a year, 2 years? Do you see yourself as an indie author or as a traditionally published author?
I don't really see myself as either of those things. I can't envision it. I mean, I would like to have written and published a novel that's not self-published by in 5 years, did you say?
Well, 2 years, 5 years.
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah, definitely not in 2 years. But I think that I don't. I'm not. I don't see myself as a novel writer for my career.
Okay.
I can't envision that right now. But I think, indie and an indie. I would love to have an indie book published. That would be, that would be a dream that happened in the next 5 years. Yeah, I mean, if a big publisher wanted my book, then obviously I would consider it too. But
And have you put out your feelers for any indie? I mean, there are indie publishers as well out there, or let's say marketing experts or editors, professional editors, because that is one thing other authors often say is very important for especially indie authors to get a good editor. It is pricey if he or she is really good, but it's worth it.
yeah, I mean, I am lucky, I think, in the sense that I am moving forward with a group that I went to into with and studied with, and a lot of them are now going to publishing jobs, which is nice. So, in 5 years' time, I might have some really useful contacts, hopefully. So we'll see. But I think, I mean, the biggest thing that I learnt or that I was taught at university is to look in the dedications of books and see of the kind of book that you have written or that you are writing. Find other books like the book that you're writing or in the same field as the one you're writing, and then look to see who they've dedicated, who their agent was, all these kind of things in that book, because that is, well, those exact people. If you get their actual names, you can contact them directly, and those are the people that might want to pick up your book, which, is definitely useful advice.
And have you been to events as well? Because I'm asking this because crime fiction events are a huge thing in the UK, and I've been 4 times to Crime Fest in Bristol, and I've watched online, I don't know, Crime Camry and Bloody Scotland, and I think that's also a good point if you go there, meet and greet, do the meet and greet, get contacts, meet new people, and so on. Is that also something you have done before or plan to do?
I think yes, once I'm living in the UK again. I mean,
Yeah.
next year, I think my focus will be on this kind of the end of this year and next year will be film festivals because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am producing a film at the moment. So I think film festivals are my focus, and I'm obviously part of a film festival coming up. And then next year we'll be actually submitting the film that I wrote. So I think that will be my main focus. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would. One of the festivals that's on my list is the Cheltenham Literary Festival. I would
Mm.
really like to go see that, and I've missed it quite a few times because of various things, but that is on my list.
Mm.
I would really love to go to that. But yeah, there are a lot of book events and festivals in the UK, and
I
I'm very lucky.
know.
I live very near London, so lots near me. Yeah.
I'm so envious.
Are there many in Austria? Maybe I'll do some research. I
Maybe
guess
I
they'll
do.
all be for German books, though. Maybe not so
Yes,
much
and I
English.
don't. Yeah, I usually don't read them, so I probably miss them all because most of the time I do. I do read.
Mm,
Well, what I'm saying, most of the time, all of the time, I read books in English. So,
yeah.
and I mean, I do look them up, those events, especially the crime fiction events here in Austria, and how they organize it and where they organize them. I'm not so keen on that because I absolutely, like I said, enjoyed crime fests because from Thursday to Sunday, all in one place, you can listen to
Hmm.
so many wonderful people and meet so many wonderful people. So
Yeah.
yeah, you do it so well in the UK. These
Maybe the only thing we
things,
do well, but
yeah. I mean, these things are fantastic.
yeah, yeah, I do want to tap into that more because I don't know for sure how long I plan to live there, but definitely I will be
Mm.
back there at some point next year. So I will tap into it while I can.
Yeah, well, and then we have the famous Izzy Arnfeld, and I can say I had her first. She was on our show first. Yes, so that you know, everyone, she was here first. Izzy,
That's very
is
kind
that
of you, but we'll see.
that's the truth? I mean, come on, Izzy, tell us about your most immediate plans. What's next? You said you're working on your film. What else can you tell us about your plans for the near future?
Um, so next up, yeah, so I have the film festival
Mm-hmm.
with the UK Jewish Film Festival, which is
Mm-hmm.
really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm also working on a well, I'm working on two things at the moment. One of them is a TV show, and the other one is the one that I was talking about that's kind of either prose or
Mm-hmm.
uh, a film.
Okay.
And those are kind of my own projects at the moment. I also really have a burning desire to make um, do something more because I have a poetry Instagram account,
Mhm,
and I have a burning desire to do like to try and combine the poetry with films. So to make like kind of spoken poetry and have like some kind of film footage combine
mhm,
like a I
mhm,
guess like an Instagram reel sort of
mhm,
format. Um, I would really like to do that. So I've been kind of collecting um, little on my daily walks, little films of beautiful scenery that I've seen in Austria, and obviously there's a lot of it. To maybe combine with some spoken poetry, which
mm,
is kind of something I'm
mhm,
looking to put together at the
mhm,
moment.
mm. Interesting. Okay. Splendid. And
So
Izzy,
yeah, still very multi-form.
yes, well, stay that way. If that's what works for you, why not? Nothing wrong with that, I would say.
Yeah.
As a reader and a consumer of such things. Consumer sounds so awful, but still, we are, in a way.
Yeah.
Izzy.
Book gobblers.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I'm in the attic, so the fake background doesn't give you an idea how much I try to consume books. Not enough time.
Yeah,
Not
you should
enough
have a
time.
bookshelf behind you.
Yeah, I know. I had it at the beginning when we did all the recording downstairs in the living room, but it's a bit unpractical. It's just more practical upstairs. So yeah,
Okay.
upstairs, downstairs. Yeah. Well, anyway, Izzy, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
Oh, so open. Anything else I would like them to know? I guess, I mean, when this comes out, my film will not be out, but to check out my film when it's out, it's called Keys. I've worked really, really hard on it, and so has the team of wonderful, wonderful other creative people, who, well, they're all my very good friends now, and yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm very, very excited to have an actual product to share with the world when it is finished. We will definitely all perfectionists. There's a beautiful piano score that was written for the film as well, which is very exciting to also share that. It was very emotional filming. The actors, well, the actor and the two actresses are all phenomenal, and very excited for them to share it as well and see if it, takes off for them. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Splendid. And where can people
Yeah, and
find you if you
I've had
want to
such a
know
nice
more
time
about?
chatting about writing.
Yeah, and where can they find you if they want to know more about your projects?
So I have Instagram for my film. I have a film sort of partnership with my friend Indra. It's called Wisdra Productions. So they can find me there. And then my poetry writing account is IR Collingwood on Instagram. And that was, I guess, those are also my middle names, but it was originally my pen name when I was younger, but I think I will stick to my actual surname from now on.
Okay. Izzy, splendid. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute. Same here. So please don't go away. Wait for me in the green room and I will be with you shortly.
Okay.
To listeners, I do hope you enjoyed this episode as much as my guests and I did. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I do hope you will tune in for another episode. Until next time.